Good evening. This is the Leesburg City Commission meeting, Monday, August the 14th. It is 5:30. I'll call the meeting to order. If everyone would please rise for the invocation and the pledge. Heavenly Father, we ask that you watch over this group tonight, that you help us make wise decisions for the city of Leesburg. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start tonight with a proclamation for the Leesburg Lightning, the FCSL champions. Whereas the city, there we go. There you go. Okay. Whereas the Leesburg Lightning, led by head coach Rich Billings and assistant coaches Rich Billings Sr. and Mark Colin, captured their fourth Florida Collegiate Summer League championship title on July 28, 2023 by defeating the Winter Garden Squeeze. And whereas the Leesburg Lightning finished the regular season in first place in the FCSL with a record of 21-12, and whereas several Leesburg Lightning players were among the top FCSL stat leaders in various offensive categories, including pitcher Riley Fitzgerald with the best ERA, and infielder Gabriel Santiago, who led in batting average, stolen bases, on-base percentage, runs scored, and hit by pitch, and was selected as the Florida League Player of the Year. That's impressive. And whereas these successes would not be possible without Coach Billings, who has been the Lightning's head coach since 2015 with an overall record of 220 wins and 156 losses, postseason 17-15, which is number one in league history for regular and postseasons, and who is named the 2023 FCSL Coach of the Year, his second time earning this honor. And whereas since joining the FCSL in 2007, the Leesburg Lightning have an overall record of 400 wins, 281 losses, have made the playoffs all 17 seasons, have 10 championship game appearances, and have won this championship 4 times, 2007, 2009, 2021, and 2023. And whereas the Lightning's home stadium is Leesburg's historic Pat Thomas Stadium, Buddy Lowe Field, where each summer for the past 17 years they have assembled teams of amazing college athletes from around the country, bringing our community together to enjoy our nation's pastime and possibly America's finest ballpark food. And whereas the city of Leesburg wishes to congratulate the Leesburg Lightning players, coaches, interns, host families, volunteers, and leadership on their outstanding 2023 season. Now, therefore, I, James A. Burry, Mayor of the city of Leesburg, do hereby proclaim the accomplishments of the 2023 Leesburg Lightning, commend the dedication, perseverance, and teamwork they displayed en route to winning the FCSL championship. Thank them for being great ambassadors for the city of Leesburg, and encourage all fans to consider supporting our home team. Go Lightning. I would also like to add that the success of the Leesburg Lightning is wholly dependent on a team of extraordinary volunteers whose time, energy, and efforts bring quality college baseball to our city year after year. We appreciate their professionalism and dedication to this organization and our community. The 2023 Leesburg Lightning volunteers are as follows: Tyler Brandenburg, the president; Rich Billings, the head coach; Rich Billings Sr., the assistant coach; Mark Colon, the assistant coach, Jack Meyer, the statistician, Glenn Cowhan, the PA announcer, Aaron Carney, host families and concessions, Jeff Carney, intern coordinator in the grill, Karen Harmon, merchandise coordinator, Victor Crosby, grill coordinator, Alan Reisman, concessions, Ivy Young, social media coordinator, Jacob Whitman, game ops intern, Alessandra Enriquez, game ops intern, and Satoru Hanakawa, game ops intern. Thank you for your volunteering for us. Right. You guys bring the trophy. Whoever wants to get the picture. Come on.
Oh, yay.
Thank you.
Let's see. Grab my list over here. Also tonight, we have some presentations. We are giving certificates to the Miss Leesburg winners. So if I could get each one of you to come up and we'll get a picture. First, we'll have Miss Leesburg, Lily Bolick. Okay. All right. Next, we have Teen Miss Megan Bolick. Okay. Next, we have Junior Miss Shaylin Shoemate. All right. Little Miss, we have Abby Carlton. And Tiny Miss, we have Carly Smith. We appreciate you guys being ambassadors to Leesburg. I see you at every event. I know you work hard.
Do you want a group picture? One more picture with all.
Picture with all. Yes.
Sorry for all the photos. You know the routine. Good job. Perfect. Lily, yours is open. Open it. Yeah. Right, ready? Carly. Ready? Carly, Keith. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Excellent. You've done this before.
Well, good job, guys. Good job.
Okay, and now
Okay. Make sure I can reach. Okay. I'm gonna cry.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yes. Could we get two?
Ready? Okay. In this room, 37 years ago, Miss Linda presented her ideas to the City Commission and asked for permission to use this name. This was the beginning of the Miss Leesburg Scholarship Program. It has been a great success, and I'm sure you guys have seen us all over town. She keeps us busy, and throughout all business, we've had your continuous support, and it's been very appreciated. The Miss Leesburg program has two goals. The first one is stressing the importance of volunteering. We aid our society in giving back to our community, and the program has encouraged all of us to step out of our comfort zones and become role models for all ages. Ms. Linda feels that if we started volunteering at our age, it would stay with us throughout our entire lives. The other goal is to stress the importance of education through our scholarship program. The scholarship program is nonprofit, and all funds are raised and given out. And when extra funds are obtained, we give them to boys and girls who are not part of the program. This year, in fact, we gave out 6 scholarships to other graduating seniors. Today is a special honor to be presented our certificates by the mayor and his commission. On behalf of myself, Miss Linda, and my fellow pageant sisters, Shaylin, Carly, Abby, and Megan, my sister, I not only thank Mayor Burry and the commission, but everyone in this room for the amount of support you guys have given us throughout this year of service. Leesburg is a tremendous place to be and is full of overflowing opportunity, and I'm so proud to call it our hometown. Thank you.
Now get Chief Mara to come up for the fire unit citation.
Excuse us, and we will, okay, thank you.
That's okay.
We'll be all out of the way. Thanks again.
Thank you.
You don't want to say?
If I'd known I was following the Leesburg Lightning's mascot, I had somebody dressed as Sparky. Maybe compete with him. Joe Mayer, Fire Chief, Leesburg Fire Department. We're here tonight to recognize the efforts and the manner in which some of your firemen performed at a fire recently. On May 25th of this year, Leesburg Fire Department responded to a structure fire. It was Ladder 63 was the first due apparatus. Ladder 63 was Darren Mathis, he's a lieutenant. Firefighter McLean, she was driving that night, and then firefighter Urban, he was a backstep firefighter. They arrived first due at a fire. They were first, and when they arrived, Lieutenant Mathis gave a size up and realized there was a working fire in a structure, and he opted to begin his operation with a fire attack, which means he intended for a hose line to be pulled to reach the fire and extinguish the fire. During that process, it came to light that there was a bystander that said, by the way, my husband's inside, and he can't get out, and I don't know where he's at. So Lieutenant Mathis then changed from extinguishment to now we have a search and rescue problem. So without hesitation, he proceeded to change operation, search and rescue. They entered the structure with zero visibility in the structure. They found the victim and brought him out, turned him over to EMS, where, as far as we know, he survived his injuries. He then went back to his initial operation of extinguishment, and the crew was able to enter the structure, find and see the fire, and extinguish it. So the fact that they made a rescue, quite frankly, is our expectation. That is not what they're getting an award for. It is our expectation that we find our victims at fires. The reason for this award is the fact that this crew, without any backup, because they were operating alone at that fire, they started down a path that made sense. They had to stop mid-path, follow a different tactical priority, complete that priority, and go back to initial operation. So that just shows their approach, their dedication to saving lives and property. Now, we're awarding these members a unit citation, but I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge one person and his group that are probably as big to blame or thank, whatever the case may be, for this operation, and that is the training division. So although these members are the proverbial tip of the spear, they're where the metal meets the meat, there is another part of this operation, and that is the training side of it. And without that, I don't believe that we would have had the same outcome we would have had that night. So Chief Roenbeck is not here, but I think there are some trainers that work along with him. If you're a trainer, put your hand up, FTOs. Yep. They're back there. they are as big a part of this as the members that actually did the work. So they're owed a great thank you as well. I know you love this. Figure out all that stuff. Mr. Urban. So at the time, Connor had about 6 months on the job. I've been at Leesburg for 22 years. I've never put my hands on a fire victim. He did it 6 months, so.
Wherever y'all want.
Something like that. Good job.
At this time, we'll move on to public comments. This section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and please give us your name and address when you come up. Any public comment? No public comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commission or staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the item or items from the consent agenda. Vote on remaining items with one roll call vote. Discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there anything to pull?
5B1 and 5B2.
5B1. Two. Anything else? Do we have a motion to approve the remaining items?
Motion to approve the remaining items.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5B1?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Sorry. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a construction services agreement with a guaranteed maximum price, GMP, with Wharton Smith, Inc. for $39,884,358 and providing an effective date.
For approval.
Second. Discussion?
I pulled this just so Al could give the public an overview of this.
Yeah, it's always a tough call whether we put these on consent or put them down on the regular bottom. But in any case, so this $39.8 million expenditure, that's for the expansion of the turnpike. Real super quick summary, if you recall, when we entered into the agreement with the villages way back when, we had to do some system improvements to the plant to get the plant up to about 4.5 MGD. Then once the villages was here a couple of years later, and pretty much as we were wrapping up the improvement project,
with all the growth that came, we realized that we were going to have to expand the plant. So we go from upgrade to expansion pretty much one step later. So if you recall, this year about last time, we issued the $30 million bank note. It was a $30 million note for about 3.3%. So we got the bank note approved. We have spent those proceeds to date pretty much on engineering. The engineering is now at the point where the project is complete, or design complete, and we can now move into the construction phase. We did the project with the construction manager at risk form. We brought on Wharton Smith to be our construction manager some time ago, pretty much in conjunction with the expansion project. So this portion of the agenda, this item, basically covers the sewer plant bill. We anticipated that the project would be about $40 million. So as of now, we're right on target with that. And the expenditure was, again, about $30 million in the debt proceeds and $10 million in cash that we had stashed away. So hopefully about 18 months later, we'll be back to report that everything went smoothly and we finished at $3.884 million, $39.884 million.
And that takes us to 6 million.
6 MGD, right. MGD, million gallons a day process.
Yeah, where we
Correct.
were at 4.5.
We started at 3.
3 and worked our way up. So.
I had one question. I support this. I'm going to vote for it, of course. And you may say this isn't all these type contracts, but I caught it this time. On page 3, there was a section called contingency savings, and I was just surprised if there's any, if there's contingency left over, that the contractor takes 25% of it and we keep 75%. And in my experience with contracts, I just hadn't seen that before. If you say that's customary,
pretty customary. We're hopeful to, and I think that was a 5% contingency in there, around 2.6 million. So hopefully we don't cut into that and we get some savings back. But yes, is the answer.
I just
to your
wonder,
question.
what's the logic of the contractor getting a portion of that?
I don't have a good answer for you on that.
Okay.
Cliff, if you want to.
It basically just incentivizes them to help us save money. So if there are contingencies, we work together to solve them rather than having the contingency funding.
Okay.
And everybody heard that. So it's an incentive. So we don't, we share the wealth, so to speak. So we incentivize so that we save versus keep on spending.
Just jumping in, that's exactly, from my experience or perspective, what's going on. The idea is to incentivize the contractor to save money and not spend the contingency money. And so if that does happen, then there's a little bit of incentive for everybody in there to do that, and the city would get the lion's share back.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Any other comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5B2, please?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a construction services agreement with a guaranteed maximum price, GMP, with Wharton Smith, Inc. for $3,992,440 and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
I also pulled this so Al could give a brief overview.
Again, this is another project that we've had sitting on the books for a little bit. There's basically 3 parts to managing our growth with reference to wastewater. We've got the 2 big growth areas up in the 44 corridor area, which would be northeast Leesburg, and then we have the growth area to the southeast, kind of the 27 corridor, if you will. All of those units, if they go, needed the sewer plant expansion, which we just talked about, and then B, the flow of the wastewater to the plant is kind of twofold. So the first part is on the northeast corridor is pretty much taken care of with the flow and the capacity at the so I don't mix up, a canal plant. The Turnpike plant is a little more difficult as far as getting flow there. Growth is still on the south side, pretty much still coming from north to south. So that 48 corridor where we see immediate growth. A little bit south gets into the Windsong Phase 2 area. Most of that growth can be taken care of by traditional, lift station flows to lift station 72. But we identified that lift station 72 needed to be expanded to capture some growth of that immediate north-southern section of growth, if you will. So this project expands that lift station. Probably about this time last year, again, if you recall, we bought that extra property from the Winn-Dixie Plaza there where we're going to expand the lift station. This project does it. Again, it's a little bit under what we estimated in the budget. So if all goes well, we stay under that $4 million number, can turn some money back to reserves, and then we buy a capacity for about 4,000 to 5,000 houses before the sewer bypass is needed. We've had some discussions, as you know, with the commission on the sewer bypass. Our plan there is to shift that construction cost to many of the subdivisions that are coming down further down 27, like Barkey, Leiden Nichols, Whispering Hills, where a bypass would be built with sewer impact fee monies that goes across the transmission corridor, kind of Plantation to 33 and then up to Okahumpka. So this is a measure that continues to allow the growth in the south, but the north side of the south. And again, the monies have been budgeted for this for some time.
Any other comment? Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, this time we'll move on to the public hearings and non-routine items. And we'll go to second reading of ordinances. Would someone please introduce 6A1?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Let's do 1, 2, and 3.
I'll introduce 6A, 1, 2, and 3 to be read by title only.
An ordinance 6A1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 60.27 plus minus acres, being generally located north of Jackson Road, east and west of Park Lane, and west of Radio Road, lying in Section 10, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida. Provided that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3, and providing an effective date. 6A2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 60.27 plus minus acres from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg estate residential for property generally located north of Jackson Road, east and west of Park Lane, and west of Radio Road, lying in Section 10, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 60.27 plus minus acres from Lake County A agriculture to City of Leesburg PUD planned unit development to allow for residential development for property generally located north of Jackson Road, east and west of Park Lane, and west of Radio Road, lying in Section 10, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Because this is a second reading and a quasi-judicial process, anyone giving testimony, if Grant would please work your magic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If anybody's here for item 6A3, Silver Lake Woods rezoning, or item 6A5, Main Butler Properties, which will be read after these hearings, if you would please stand and raise your right hand so you could be sworn in. Anybody wishing to testify on either of these hearings? Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead. All right. Do you swear or affirm that all testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. This project is Silver Lake Woods. It's a single-family residential development on approximately 60 acres, generally located west of Radio and east and west of Park Lane. They're requesting 85 units for a density of 1.41 units per acre. So it'll be an annexation, small-scale comp plan, and rezoning into the city. Of those 60 acres, and again, it's 1.41 is a gross density on this property. 28 acres of preserved wetlands. The only permitted uses are single family. There are 3 lot sizes, 50, 60, and 70-foot lots. The access point is required on Radio Road. It will be a boulevard-type access with a landscape median. The 60 and 70-foot lots are located on the exterior of the property. The 50-foots will be on the interior. Each home will have a 2-car garage. And the 50-foot lots, as we've discussed in previous City Commission meetings, will all have gutters. We do have the standard architectural and design standards, 25-foot buffer around the property on the north, east, and south, stormwater pond, and 28 acres of wetlands are buffering on the west side. There's options for fencing and tree requirements, front and backyard, along with dark sky lighting, and 0.4 acres for recreation. I believe Mr. Hennon and Mr. Beverly are here if you'd like to see a presentation. I did want to take note that I'm showing this as Commission District 3, and I question that, so if with your permission, before it's signed, I believe it should be District 5. And we will make that correction. Beyond that, any questions I can answer?
Just a general question. I know when 50-foot lots kind of first hit the radar, I don't know, my time 5 years ago, they got a lot of question, debate. They must be selling when we were seeing them. I never had a problem with them, but I assume the 50-foot lots are selling in the developments we've approved since.
So far, everything that's getting built is selling.
Okay, I was just curious.
And we have, in total, somewhere around 30,000 lots that are either being reviewed or have recently been approved through zoning or platted. A majority of those are going to be 50s. And what staff is saying is we need to mix that up a little bit.
Okay. No, my position was when it first hit the radar, there was a lot of debate on it. My position was, whatever the market wants. I guess I was curious 5 years later, 4 or 5 years later, the market must be absorbing the 50-foot lots.
Lake Denham is mostly 50-foot lots, has some 40s around the front, and it's almost finished.
Okay.
And that's 600 lots in there.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Yes, sir.
Motion for this?
We'll do it after.
At the end.
So, does anybody want to have the presentation? You're okay? Okay. All right. Public comment. Is there any public comment regarding this? I guess there's no rebuttal from the staff then. No rebuttal from the petitioner. Any questions? Any deliberation from the commission? Okay, so if you would please introduce 6A1, we will then officially.
I'll introduce 6A1 and move for approval.
Yes, to move for approval. Second. All right, we've had discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes.
I'll introduce 6A2 and move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. And
I'll introduce 6A3, move for approval.
Second.
No discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. All right. Would someone please introduce 6A4?
I'll introduce 6A4 to be read by title only.
Do you want 4 and 5 together?
Yeah, let's do 4 and 5.
I'll introduce 6A4 and 5 to be read by title only.
Yeah, I didn't put my little bar on.
6A4, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 0.4 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg General Commercial and Low Density Residential to City of Leesburg General Commercial for property generally located south of West Main Street and north of Butler Street, lying in in Section 27, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A5, excuse me. An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 0.4 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg C1 Neighborhood Commercial and R1 Low Density Residential to City of Leesburg C1 Neighborhood Commercial for a property generally located south of West Main Street and north of Butler Street, lying in Section 27, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Get a motion for approval.
Motion for approval for 6A4.
Second. Okay, let's hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an unusual situation where the zoning district boundaries, the future land use district boundaries, and the property boundaries are all over the place. I don't know how they got here. It's been there for decades. So we had some gentlemen come in and want to utilize the property, and we decided we're going to have to make some changes in order for him to be able to utilize the property. It was just something that happened decades ago, and I don't know. So we just wanted to match those lines up between what's under future land use and zoning, so they're the same, and then do the lot split, which they've worked on and done. So what we'll end up with is consistency of the lines as it should be, and then C1, which is neighborhood commercial, and general commercial, which would be on the north along Main Street, and R1, which is low density along Butler. So everything will be consistent. They can put houses on, a couple of houses on Butler, a small commercial site on the north. And that's it. Everything looks good.
Thank you, Dan. Would you like to hear from the petitioner? Any questions? Okay. All right. Public comment? No rebuttal. No rebuttal to the petitioner. No deliberation. All right. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Cunnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. That'll be on 6A4, so we also need to do
I'll introduce 6A5. Move for approval.
Yep. Second. No discussion. Go ahead. Roll call.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Cunnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay. We'll move on to 6B, which is first reading of ordinances. Would someone please introduce 6B1?
I'll introduce 6B1 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, consenting to the inclusion of the City of Leesburg, Florida within the countywide municipal service taxing unit for the provision of ambulance and emergency medical services as adopted by the Board of County Commissioners of Lake County, Florida, providing for the city to be included within said MSTU for a specific term of years, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date.
It's going to lay over till the second. Any questions regarding this? Any? You want to give a quick explanation just why we're doing this?
This is a SOP type of ordinance where we piggyback with the county for the MSTU, Municipal Service Taxing Unit, for the ambulance district. Every resident in the county receives that service.
Right. And we're doing it kind of year to year.
We do that year to year just to kind of keep the millage in check.
Good deal. This will be up for a second reading. Do we have a date?
August 28th.
August 28th will be the second reading. Would someone please introduce 6B2?
I'll introduce 6B2 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 11 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg SPUD Small Plan Unit Development and R3 High Density Residential to City of Leesburg SPUD Small Plan Unit Development for property generally located east of Executive Boulevard and south of State Road 44, lying in Section 29, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
There's no need for approval. This is a layover. Any comments? No public comment? I wouldn't think. All right. This will lay over to the 28th also. someone please introduce 6B3?
I'll introduce 6B3 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the City Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 5, Section 5-6, consumption of and open containers prohibited on public property, exceptions, amending Section 5-6.2, consumption of or possession of alcohol in open containers near stores selling alcoholic beverages, amending Chapter 18, street, sidewalks, and other public places, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for inclusion in the Code of Ordinances, and providing for an effective period and effective date.
Thank you, Annie. This is a first reading. The second reading will be
28th.
the 28th also. I think we may need a little discussion. We have some of the public that may have some comments. I, for one, am in favor of the ordinance, but I also have spoke to Al about a sunset clause in this for 1 year, where we look at it again next year, much like we did down at the marina with the boat basin, where if it works, it works. If it's not working, then we can address that. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but that's something
I'll go ahead and say I fully support this ordinance.
Any other comment? Any public comment?
Is it fair for me to ask commissioners kind of where they stand, since we have all these people here from downtown? We're not voting on it. I'm just curious where this commission stands. I see three. Well, I guess we have three, so that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm for it.
Okay, I count three.
A sunset clause that is good for 1 year, that we would look at this in 1 year and.
I'll withdraw my comment. We have three votes. Okay.
Right.
If the other commissioners want to chime in, that's fine. I just want to be fair to the audience since we have people here. And this has been a subject that's been talked about for a few years, and I appreciate Commissioner Reisman bringing it to the table.
Any other comment? No public comment? Okay. That would wind it up. Non-routine items, we have none. Informational reports. Any questions regarding the financial reports of May or June?
I just have a quick question on the projected write-offs. What classifies and gives us the ability, how do we determine a write-off for our commercial and residential accounts? Because our numbers are getting pretty high compared to last year.
The write-offs, once they go through the process of collections, and we've chased it down as far as we can with our collection agencies, and then that's the time we've written it down, we write it off. So this is pretty much like all available efforts have been exhausted to try to rewrite it off.
Okay.
Those numbers are a little bit higher. A lot of those are COVID-induced and those type of things. So we'll probably see a little blip in there for a bit. We try to keep those on the books as far as we can, but we're at the point on those collections where we need to write it off.
So for clarification, I mean, I understand writing it off. We don't give up our collection efforts. We just write it off on our book. We may in some cases. I mean, I don't.
We'll turn it over, and if it comes in, we'll keep moving as best we can.
I have a question in reference to the collection. Has it been in favor after so long? I mean, how many months does it go through as far as collection process before you say?
A couple of years. Yeah, probably a couple of years from when that's incurred to when we ultimately write it off. And just on, on those numbers, they're up about $100,000, but you're still looking at a write-off of around $335,000 out of 90 million or so.
I'm smiling at Commissioner Reisman because my first year on the commission, it was over 400, and I was making an issue of it.
Yeah, so
we do a lot with $350,000.
That's exactly what I said.
We look at it that way quite often, but really, when you compare it to the percent of the amount of revenue we bring in and what those do, that's not anything other than the private sector would write off as well. So So it's really a pretty good number, and we beat it up pretty good to get collected what we get collected. And we've had this discussion every year. The flip side of that equation is to lower that number, we become a lot more punitive to our customers in terms of deposit policies, utility connection, disconnection things. And so kind of the trade-off we did was we eased up on some of the deposit policies. But, our deposit policies back in the day were considerable and not market-driven. So I think for where we've gone in terms of beating it up, having good policies that are customer service friendly, our write-off amount still isn't a considerable number. Jim's good.
Any more questions regarding that, or any of the other financial information? Any questions? All right. So we'll move on to city attorney items.
No items this evening.
No city attorney items. So about city manager items.
I don't at this time.
None at this time.
I suspect there may be a couple questions from the commission, but we'll tackle it. I won't preempt any of you.
All right, let's go to roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
I do have one item I want to bring up, and this is, not sure where to start, Venetian Center. I have been vocal with prior commissions. I'll right to the point, and I'll come back around. I would like for us to consider knocking down the Wellness Center, and I don't take that mildly, knocking down a perfectly good building. But I drive by Venetian Center all the time, and I sit there at that red light. I cannot see Pat Thomas Stadium. We've got a $11, $12, $13 million investment here in all of Venetian Center. It's first rate, and we've got this ugly building, which we could put a facade on it. But it does block the view of Pat Thomas, but more importantly, we have a parking problem there on occasion. The night of stepping out for education, I was down there Saturday night. I went to the event Friday night, but I happened to be down there Saturday night. And we had a parking problem with the Venetian Center going, the baseball game going, and Ski Beach on Saturday night. I've been there before. Take that combination and add the boat club event, which we've had before, and we've had some parking issues. I didn't bring it up earlier. I'm throwing it out there because we're in budget process, and I'd like to see if the commission would consider merging this into the budget. But I didn't want to bring it to the commission's attention until we had a number. Al got back with me, and it's not a good number, but $1.5 million would demolish the building we have, create parking, which we need, open up the view, construct or renovate the building over on Griffin that we currently own for the Wellness Center, and the subject to an agreement with the hospital. We sold the baseball field to the hospital, if the commission doesn't know that. We have a lease on it. Help me out, Al.
We do. We have a lease with the reverter clause. So we sold that property to the hospital eons ago.
Right.
And it was to be used for hospital use only. And if it wasn't used for hospital use, then the property would revert back to the city. Yeah. So, and hospital use has a pretty broad definition, but essentially the concept is the hospital can't turn around and sell it to McDonald's, right? So it's got to be some type of hospital use. I've talked with the hospital a number of times about, hey, how about you just give it back to us? Most recently, I talked to the hospital probably about 3 months ago, and they warmed up to the concept of allowing us a different use. So,
which is what I'm proposing.
Which is what you're proposing. So it's kind of like the stars are aligned. The concept that Commissioner Peterson brought up about knocking down the Wellness Center is not a new one. It really goes back to when we started the Venetian Center and the purchase of the, forgive me if I'm wrong, for FOE, right, Fraternal, or the Eagles building, or the, where's the Knights of Columbus? Knights of Columbus. Sorry, I confused those. But it's basically the Morton building, if you will, that's next to the electric department. So when we bought that back in the day, that was kind of the ultimate thought, was that we were going to shift around some uses at the Venetian Center, the Venetian Isles area, and what Commissioner Peterson brought up was. So we just recently got those numbers back in. It's budget process, so he's bringing that to your all's attention.
Yeah, so you go ahead.
Do you mind if I ask a question? What's in the Knight of Columbus building right now?
It's empty right now.
empty.
It was Boys and Girls
It
Club.
was Knights of Columbus. Boys and Girls Club use it on an interim basis because, again, back to the Venetian Isles projects, we wanted to knock down the old Boy Scout hut where Boys and Girls Club camped out for a bit. When we knocked that facility down to get the splash pad looking better, we leased that building to the Boys and Girls Club while the Teen Club was being constructed. Now they have since shifted out of that. So basically you've got a shell building there that with about $1 million worth of work, you can convert into the wellness center, which was kind of the concept when we started.
Yeah, so my last two comments, and I'll let the other commissioners chime in. So part of my idea was the baseball field, for example, subject to the hospital's approval, just make it a grass parking lot. I don't want to surface it. I don't want to spend a lot of money. What I said to Al just in discussion was take down the remaining baseball equipment, or there's basically a tall fence in the back.
Which we've done.
Yeah, the fence out on.
Well, no, the fence behind home plate. Backstop, excuse me. Take that out. We need a curb cut there. And I just want to put basically curb stops out in that grass field and lay it out where it looks like parking. It would be overflow as needed. And you can maybe make the argument, if you do that, you don't need to knock down the wellness building. And I said it before, I don't take that lightly, but I just think we've spent all this money. I've said this before in other projects. If you're going to do a project, do it right. And I think we are 95% of the way there. And I think even though it's $1.5 million, I think by knocking this building down, creating as many parking spaces as possible. I asked Al if we could move that little small retention pond. That's too complicated because we have a larger retention pond just to the west. But I just want to create parking and open it up. Refresh everybody's memory, we spent $750,000 updating Pat Thomas Field, which looks great. And I just think we need to open up the visibility and create more parking. So I'll stop right there. And I welcome any and all
Just a
comments.
question about, somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought that Ski Beach had an agreement, like a right of first refusal on that.
Yes. So
Something exists.
in the Ski Beach agreement, there is a right of first refusal that if we did another restaurant pad, that the partners there, it's Randy Quintus's group. I can't remember what their formal name is by the contract. But if the city did that, then they would get first opportunity to work with us on that. So that's really up to you.
Well,
so
but that would create more parking problem. We already have a parking problem on occasion.
Great problem.
Yeah. No. Hey, trust me. I say that all the time. I say that downtown, by the way, when people complain about parking. I said that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, so I don't that clause in that agreement doesn't really concern me. I don't think it should concern you, moving forward.
Me personally, I think rather than tearing down the building, the potential for another restaurant, and then have parking across the street at the baseball field. Make that a more formalized parking for use of everything.
I just throw it out for discussion. I mean, it does block the view, of Pat Thomas if you are eastbound. But it's $1.5 million too. So if commissioners don't like it, I'm not going to sit here and argue it too strongly.
Yeah, I've got several things on that. We've had this discussion before, and I'm not for doing that. Have you had a geotech report done on the soils?
Have not.
I think you're going to find they're not very conducive for development on them. I believe the wellness center is up on some major pylons. So it's not just as easy to tear the building down and asphalt that. I mean, how many spots do you think you could have? It's not a very big lot, especially if you accommodate the extra impervious area for stormwater. I think it's a complete waste. I don't think there's anything wrong with that building. I think it's in perfectly good shape. I think for the bang for your buck, you're not going to get maybe a dozen parking spots for $1.5 million. I just don't think it's worthwhile to do. And like I said, I think if you really did a geotech survey of the soils, you're going to find they're not conducive to put a parking lot on them, unless you want the cars to be sinking.
Yeah. Well, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So I don't know. If we want to dress it up, to make
That's
it
what I
look
was
more
gonna add.
compatible to the Pat Thomas and Phoenicia Center. I'm all for that, but I just don't see the need to tear it down. As far as cross street and the ball field, I mean, I don't know. Does nobody use that field at all no more for practice or
At
nothing?
all. We've been taking the baseball baseball backstop and other fencing down.
Yeah, I mean, if we have use for it, I mean, what would it cost us to have use of it, to put parking? What would the hospital want for us to do that?
The hospital will probably let us use that property for parking, but the hitch with that giddy up is that when they're ready to develop it, you're going to lose your parking.
Right. I mean, I get that, but I mean, I would think, other than major events going on down there, do we really have a parking problem every weekend down there, or just for
No,
major
not every weekend.
events?
I didn't say that, but we have had, when you get 3 or 4, when you get all those facilities going, we do have a parking problem. Now, if the commission wants to put a facade, a new facade on it, I'm not going to argue that. It's probably the more fiscally responsible thing to do. It stands out like a sore thumb. So at a minimum, we need to put a new facade on it. And I could live with that. I just threw it out for discussion. And by the way, I thought you being, Mr. Pat Thomas, he brought the 750. I thought you'd be a supporter of it. That's not a criticism. I'm just saying.
I'm a supporter of Pat Thomas.
No, I thought you'd like my idea of opening it up and all
tearing
that.
the building down.
Yeah. I respect that.
Yeah.
I have a question. How far is the parking deck from the Pine Street area in reference to that for walking?
A mile? No. Well, how far is the parking deck? We got like 4 or 5
The parking
blocks.
deck from Pine, isn't that right adjacent
From the
to
library? So you go into the library to the...
You mean the pool?
The parking deck that has been put in for
The
Pine
parking
Street.
garage at the library.
It's right behind the area, the new parking deck.
Oh, I don't...
It's right in the back, just
okay.
behind the baseball field.
That's what I'm saying.
Basically,
How far is that
Almost-
from the, that's what I'm thinking.
a couple hundred yards, if that.
And how many cars was that for? How many lots was that parking
I don't know how many lots is... I don't know how many cars is in
I
that.
want to say 75 or something.
The aquatic facility parking lot?
for? Yes, that's right
what the
behind the
numbers
Pat
show?
Thomas
The
Field.
new one on the last deal.
Oh, for the CDC.
Yes.
That's right behind the,
What's that,
That's
60?
right, that
Right
almost
behind the
butts
field.
up to the
60?
baseball
Yeah.
field.
Actually, I think you have one building between them. You have the CDC
the
building.
CDC parking lot, 60-ish.
Okay.
And that'd be on the corner of Childs and Pine.
and we're talking Canal and Dixie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
like maybe a block.
It's a block.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly a block, yeah. Just thinking.
I like the conversation's going. I just think we should continue it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Commissioner Berry?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Connell?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Reisman?
Nothing this evening.
Mayor Burry?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. The first, just a little update on the partnership and where we're going, and what your take on that is.
Okay, so I have had a number of conversations with the partnership board, some discussions with commissioners one-on-one, and just kind of a brief synopsis of that situation. First off, we being Travis Ryman and myself, will be bringing the city commission a presentation on potentially of how do we move forward with events considering the circumstances. And that hopefully will give you some information to make a decision to where a framework can be put in the fiscal year 24 budget, which you'll approve in September, moving forward. So the question that arose was the partnership approached this body for additional funding, $450,000. There wasn't a formal motion by this body to say, here's a check for $450,000 to the partnership, but I think it was publicly discussed, and the concept was, I would say, warmly overwhelmingly received by the community. With that, the partnership then started doing some planning. They had the resignation of their general manager, and then there was some question on how the partnership moves forward. In all honesty, I think everything in this regard, this is my editorial, revolves around the concept of Bike Fest and Mardi Gras and kind of the whole mechanism of why the city is not in the events business. So back in the day when Bike Fest started, my opinion is that Bike Fest and Mardi Gras were such lucrative enterprises for the partnership that the concept was let the partnership do these major events and do tertiary events, which would then thereby save the city from having to invest in events, which pretty much was the concept, and that worked for a long time, probably up until about 2015, 2016 timeframe, as the Bike Fest became less lucrative for the partnership. At that time, some different concepts came up, and additional funding went to the partnership in terms of civic funding, and the partnership kind of held on, and the events went off. In more recent years, I think there's a number of reasons for why at this time Bike Fest is not the moneymaker that it used to be. I think those things go with COVID. Those things go with just a bunch of different reasons whereby on a perpetual basis, as it was in the past, the funding is not there for the partnership to not only just do Bike Fest, but then to fund other city events that we've all enjoyed. So the partnership then approached myself after they took a vote of the partnership, which I believe the vote was 5-1 or 6-1, to approach the city about what would it look like if the city took on all events. I think that approach to me and that vote from the partnership, again, my editorial came with some trepidation from the partnership board. I think there was concern from the partnership board of a changing of requests, from give us, let me use better words, to partner with us with funding, to how about you guys take it over. My response back to the partnership board has been, and in conversations with each of you individually, has been, I don't think that that's the major concern of the City Commission. I think the major concern of the City Commission is that Leesburg has great events that makes Leesburg look great, and that makes folks want to live, work, and play in Leesburg. And as long as we find that answer, then I think everybody will be happy at the end of the day. I also think that this has kind of been a question probably since at least 2015 that we've talked about in one form or another, and for all sorts of different reasons, almost 8 years later, now we're talking about it. So based on the partnerships board's request to me, what would it look like if city does events? Travis and I are working on a presentation that kind of outlines some concepts we have. And essentially, I think, just real briefly, the division would be kind of ticketed events, which probably we want nonprofit organizations to continue to do because they're fundraisers. Those events, chili cook-off, fish fry, beast feast, the list goes on, but I think those type of events we don't want to be involved with because they're good fundraisers for our not-for-profits. The Chamber, the CDC, Downtown Business Association, that list is continued. But I think a framework of how we do events moving forward where the city then uses those same funds that we were going to consider giving to the partnership as a funding of an events arm of the city, which would then be in the recreation department. So we'll finish off that presentation. In so doing, I will share the presentation with the partnership board prior to dissemination to the commission to make sure the partnership board understands where we're going, and then you all can make those recommendations and decisions on the future at the 28th. And it may be as simple as, we love the concept, let's do it, and then we'll weave it into the budget, or you guys come back and say the other end of the spectrum, which is, this is crazy, we ain't doing it, and then we're going back to the drawing board. So hopefully we figure out a good plan, and that presentation will be made to you on the 28th.
Second thing, just on the Lee School property. Mike had a 60-day, I believe. We wanted to decrease the number of units than what he had applied for, and we gave him.
Well, my concern was adequate parking, which means you had to give up some units to create what I deemed to be adequate parking.
We approved a PUD that night that was for fewer units, not what he wanted, and we gave him 60 days.
We did have a motion that was loosely worded that if the developer didn't come back to the city with a modified plan in 60 days, that maybe he would need to start over the concept, which would be redo a site plan, go back to the historic board. I kind of think you should just put that conversation in abeyance right now until Mr. Mansfield comes back to us. Okay. That may or may not be something, the 60 days being something you may want to walk back. That's probably a conversation with Grant. So I'm not prepared to discuss that in detail just because I don't want to put out any incorrect information. But really, I think at this stage, the go, no-go of that development falls into the lap of Mr. Mansfield and where he wants to go. We'll continue to code enforce and ensure that the property is upkept as best we can under the existing codes and move forward accordingly. I did speak with Mr. Mansfield probably about 2-3 weeks ago. He says that he does have a new investment group and he's still trying to put his numbers together for a concept that Mr. Peterson put out there where he adds more parking and takes some of the units away and kind of try to meet in the middle ground between the 63 units, if the numbers are correct, that were approved and the want from the Planning and Zoning Commission, which was closer to 50 units.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't want to pick a fight with him over the 60 days. In fact, the 60 days has already expired, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
But we do need some direction on this property. And I think we need, I appreciate everything this developer's done, but to date, boy, if he's not going to do something soon, I want to get a little bit tougher on cleaning that thing up, making in some form or fashion, or start code enforcing it or something.
He already has a notice and a date to appear before the special magistrate.
Okay. I mean, I welcome this development. I want it to happen, but it just keeps dragging and dragging, and I drive by that damn building too many times.
That's true. Okay, and then my third thing, and this will be it. Mike mentioned how busy it was the weekend of the stepping out for education. And just to make sure the public knew, we had premier dancer involved in the fundraising event. And we just wanted to give the public a little view of what it really looks like to be a superstar. John Travolta's got nothing on him. Nothing on him.
I had a suspicion I would be seeing that again.
Great job on that. That was great. So, great job, Al, and great job, Jimmy, working that in the meeting.
That's it for me.
I played the piano. I did a double death spiral and still didn't win. It got honorable mention for men's Saturday night. So
his Billy Joel was spot on. Piano Man. It was rigged. It was rigged. All right. So we get a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. We're done. Thank you, guys.